Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Catherine Zach. This is the 40 portal, babe. Oh my goodness. This past week in real life, in real time, what is this? The first week of May, I sat on a panel of women speakers at an event over in the Berkshires. Shout out to the Berkshires. Shout out to Berkshire Muse. Shout out to all the women in that Inner Circle program. That was so much fun. The panel was fantastic, and I can't wait to tap some of my fellow panelists for the podcast because they have incredibly interesting stories and some deep and vivifying wisdom to share. So stay tuned for that. But I got to sit in the room with real life women and share about the 40 Portal podcast. It was so much fun. And here's what I love about this podcast. Number one, it's not about me. It's about you. It's about you. It's about your stories. It's about our stories. It's about finding the universal in the little stories. And when I say it's not about me, I love the podcast so much because when my listeners come up to me and say, or send me a message that says, I love the podcast, I can say back with pure open energy, oh my God, I love it too. Isn't it fabulous? Aren't these women spectacular? Spectacular. You are. So I can't thank my guests enough. I can't thank you, the listeners, enough. And I want us to go deeper with this because there's so much energy percolating. I could feel it in the room that I was in, the literal room that I was in this past week sharing about the podcast. So make sure you stay to the very end of this episode because I am announcing a really low-key, but I think pretty awesome way for us to continue to gather in, for now, virtual rooms. But I've got some in-person stuff up my sleeves. So stay tuned for that. But listen all the way to the very end of this episode so that you don't miss this little announcement that I'm so excited about. And I need you. We need each other. I need you to continue to submit your own portal wisdom and your own portal questions into the podcast. If you've been listening, or even if this is your first episode, you will see that every single episode, every single conversation I have with the women on the podcast is anchored by a submission from another woman. So in this way, like the conversation already gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so at the end of every episode, I read either a handwritten piece of wisdom from another woman, if they are over the age of 40, or a question that they are currently living. So here is the official prompt. I will leave a little form that you can fill out and submit your wisdom and your questions to the podcast for the chance to have your words featured in an upcoming episode. But you can also leave this over on Substack. You can also leave this in a review on Apple Podcasts or on YouTube. All of those comments I read, and they help us kind of create and shape the conversation that you want to hear. So here's the official prompt. Listen up. Take notes. Do this right now. Open up Apple Pods, leave this in a review, click the form. Here we go, because I want you to add your voice. I want you to add your voice, especially if you're scared or you think it doesn't matter. Add your voice. So here's the prompt. If you have passed through the 40 portal, if you are over 40, what do you know? What have you learned and earned and burned? It can be short and sweet. It can be sexy and irreverent. It could be silly or serious. I am here for it all. Women over 40, what have you learned and earned and burned? Women under 40, what is an open question that you are living right now? A longing, a desire, a fear, a dream. What do you want to put out into the universe in the hopes that the 40 portal will send you a little tidbit, a little nugget of wisdom back? Okay, please, please, please share your words with me. Leave it in the comments on Apple Pods, leave it on YouTube comments, put it over on the Substack comments, or fill out the form and put your wisdom there. I cannot wait to hear from you. And this episode is a perfect example of what we're building together. Today, I have my first true elder on the podcast. I have in my book, in my literal 40 portal book, which if you're watching this on YouTube, here it is, folks. That's where the wisdom goes. That's where the question goes. I have submissions from women in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s in the book. So I am so excited in upcoming episodes to continue to feature these cross-generational voices. This is part of the magic of the podcast too, because it's not just the 40s. That's the portal that I'm currently in. And I think it's truly the gateway into midlife. And I think something really sexy and terrifying and powerful happens when you turn 40, or it can. But I'm here to sit with, to listen to, and to talk to women on each side of that threshold. And the more diverse voices across the years, across backgrounds, all of it we can get, the richer and truer and more exciting this conversation becomes. And today, my guest is 65, and I was just blown away by what she offers and how she offers it. There is so much we can learn from each other, especially if we're at really different like mile markers in our life. So I know you're going to get a lot out of this episode too. Alicia was so generous in what she had to give. I am so grateful to have met her, to have our paths crossed, and to have her share her story on the 40 portal. So go ahead, dive in. Don't forget to submit your wisdom, your question, so we can keep these going. And stay tuned all the way to the end of the episode because I have something really cool to announce.
I felt so lucky to be connected to you. We were introduced by a person who we mutually know. And it was one of those cool things where like she thought of each of us and that we must meet. And whenever that happens, I don't know, there's something really powerful in that because I think that relational, I think you should meet this person. And then you have this kind of context and you're like so curious, like, why are we, what do they see about it?
Right? It's like a blind date that isn't a date, but it kind of has that sparkle to it. Yeah.
Totally. And maybe blind dates for friends is even better
So
than
good. Yeah.
So
right?
good. So I felt so lucky to be connected to you. And I felt like I must have some connection to you when I first walked in to our little coffee shop meeting. And there you were. And I don't know, I immediately felt so at ease in your presence and so excited to just sit with you. It was very palpable.
I felt the same way. Just I really didn't care where it went. You know, it was more like, wow, cool person. And like just the way that you were telling your story and what you were building was really fascinating to me. And it was so easy to talk about ideas, like just the way that just the way that we developed the idea was, it was, I was pretty nervous. Like, I don't know I literally had no idea what I was doing. And you just had really beautiful, simple ways of getting into a conversation that I'm typically just not good at. So I felt like I was like instantly like I was cared for. And it was just like magical, you know, like, oh, this is going to be amazing. And I get to be me. I don't have to do this other part. And I felt like you got to be you. And it was just really easy. and ideas just got big so effortlessly. So yeah, I too, I felt like it was kind of cosmic.
And I have so many questions I want to ask you right now, but I just love that we could meet each other for the first time. We could be strangers. And to give people some context, like you were in the process of launching a book. You had written a book and it's a beautiful book. I have it in my hands. And it's a pretty magical book. And Melissa, who connected us, was wondering if I would host at my studio, because we're all in the Hudson Valley together, a book launch event for your book. And so there was like a business possibility there. Right.
Right, a reason. Yeah.
But I love how you said two things among many, that you said you were kind of open, like you didn't have any expectations, like it didn't need to go anywhere. And then you said, and it was kind of cosmic. And so I just love that two people could be meeting under this pretense of like a potential business collaboration, but we could be ourselves, not have expectations, and it could be cosmic. Like, how?
Right. And I don't know, personally, that's when, to me, it it feels like I want to invest myself. Do you know what I mean? Like business, that's great. And there's lots of business that you do that you can be, very professional and show up and do what you promised and be ethical and all of those things. I'm all for that. But there's also moments in business interactions where you really want to give of yourself. Like I felt like just from the very get-go, the ideas that you shared, they were truly of yourself. You were really just being open-hearted and open-minded, and I felt like I wanted to meet you in that way, like to not be guarded and to not be like, well, this is my book and it's going to go my way or something like that. It's like, no, I don't know, and have fun to not know with somebody cool and see where it goes. Like what really, literally, there's kind of nothing better than that to me.
So good. I wonder, so I'm curious, has it always felt like that is a possibility for you, or is that something that you grew into over time? Because for me, I think I'm just stepping into this in a more, I think I've been trying to do this since I quit Big Law, which was 12 years ago. And sometimes I find it to be effortless. And it's usually when I'm teaching in a setting where people are coming to me and they know what the expectation is, and we kind of already have that established. But every time I go into like a corporate speaking engagement or a corporate consulting thing, I like it. It's almost like the mask, I don't know, something breaks down and I find myself going into this like, I must be impressive mode. And I'm getting better at catching that, because what I know, because there's a lot of things I don't know, and I don't even know how to turn off the impressing thing before I catch it. But I know that if I am trying to impress, I cannot connect. And connecting is what I came here to do.
I think that's fascinating, and that you have the self-awareness to notice it. And so I would just advocate, like, create some tricks for yourself that when you notice it, you can get out of it, and like effortlessly, you just shift into being present. And like in most circumstances, people are only going to feel happy because somebody being present is just joyful. And so there's no loss. And um, like learning and understanding those cues to yourself, that's a that's a big gift for yourself.
So two things. Number one, feel free to share any tricks that come to mind, because I feel like you have so many bags of tricks. That's what you wrote about in Buried Treasure, all of your tricks. Feel free to share whatever you want. And then, yeah, maybe I'll just pause there. Does anything come to mind? Like when,
Well, I want to tell just a short story because it happened today, and I was thinking about this conversation that we're having, and I had an incident today that just so knocked me off center, and I was like, you know, cuss words here, and I did something that I've been doing with my book. So I just sat down and I was, it's like, why am I, what am I feeling? And I sort of branched out, like I'm feeling, frustrated and ashamed, or that maybe that's not even the right word, but I have been using my book, the manuscript of my book, in an AI. And so I put it in. I was like, okay, I want to work with you. This is the way I'm feeling. And, use my book, and I want to understand what's going on in my brain. And I'm too knocked off to figure this out. And it was so amazing to me, to just be able to do that. And I was proud of myself, it's like, I am fucking knocked off center here. And I just don't want to stay here. And the thing that was amazing is, from my own book, I'm like reacquainting myself with, oh, okay, your brain is in the same. So when you're in that state, it's the same as being under physical attack when you're feeling those thoughts. So like all of this stuff is going on in your brain. And to try and be rational and to figure your way out of it and that kind of stuff, it's really not going to work, because you're sort of perpetuating that feeling. And the thing that works is to switch on your compassion network in your brain. And there's really little things. And you being the expert on this, movement is one of the key things for self-compassion. Just the tiniest little things, like to just stand with one hand at your heart and one hand on your belly and take a couple of breaths. That is more powerful than all of the analyzing and what I should have done and what I should have said and all of that, So I would just say, like, remembering that moving out of your head and into your body is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. And especially in moments of, disarray, or, like you know, you've been knocked off center, is the way I always put it to myself. But, it's so, like, if you find yourself performing impressive, if you just take a breath and put yourself in your body, you're going to be beautiful. You're going to be grand. It's so easy. And I think that we hardly ever give ourselves the easy thing. We think we have to do the hard thing. And so I did it. I left, and I did some qigong, and I pruned a plant that needed some love, and I came back, and I was fine, and I was happy, and I was ready to face the thing, but just, yeah, I think giving yourself that little gift. So that's my story.
okay, now everyone's like, who are we listening to? So I want to introduce, because I'm almost like, that could be the end of the episode. Just drop the mic, but no one knows who's talking yet. So let's go into it. Let's go into the 40 Portal 10. Will you tell us your name and your pronouns? And then, is there anything deeper to your name, to the story of your name, or how it fits into who you are, or how you feel about your identity?
Okay. So my name is Alicia Johnson, and I because that is a very common name, I needed to add a middle for like my web presence and to like under pressure, I had to add I had to have an Instagram account because I'm a board model. I'm an elder curve model. And my agent was like, you must have an Instagram account before you go to this event. So my husband helped me set it up and we're like fishing through names. And my middle initial is L for Lee. And so we went with Alicia Elle Johnson because L's kind of, it's Frenchy and it's a magazine, it's fashion. So my name for social media is Alicia L. Johnson, which kind of cracks me up because I don't know, it's just funny. But I've always really liked my name, Alicia. I think it's pretty, and also nobody knows how to say it because it's spelled Alicia, and so it's you know depending on where you are, it's uh, it gets pronounced different ways. So I often just go by AJ. I'm trying to remember what it is in Italian and Portuguese. Alicia is an anchovy, I think. So I'm a little fish, very flavorful. I'm pure umami. Um, so yeah, I like it. I don't know. I've always felt really happy. Like in my family, I'm the only one that has. I was born in Southern California, and I think it's a Spanish name, and I think that maybe my parents just picked it because they were really happy. They all moved there. So anyway, that's my name.
It made me laugh because you and your husband were so like strategic in that creation. And I created my Instagram account when I was like 20, like I don't know, it was before Instagram became this tool. It was still very much like a social platform where people took pictures of their salads. Um, and my nickname from my sisters is Kathy Pants. And so like my handle was like Kathy Pants 85. And then like 10 years into having Instagram where I was like, people are actually using this for business. And I kind of am too. I was like, oh, I don't think I should be Kathy Pants 85.
I shouldn't be Kathy Pants anymore, especially 85, right? Like
So
that
silly.
Kathy Pants 85 takes you to such a particular type of pants too, right?
Oh yeah. Like what are you picturing?
Right. Right. Well, like I'm actually picturing a completely different generation of pants, but I've got it all wrong. But what immediately came to mind was it would be Kathy Pants. You weren't even born then, I bet. What year would that have been? Like 77. And there were these jeans that were must have, and they were a little bit high waisted chemin de fer. They were very fancy. So yeah, very fancy Southern California girl jeans.
I want a pair to be
I
on the
bet
list.
you know what? I bet you they're on the eBay.
Yeah.
You should
Okay.
check them out. They're cute.
I'm gonna
They're
look.
they're super cute.
I'm gonna look. That's so good. Okay. Next question is, how would you introduce yourself if like job titles, resumes, accomplishments weren't like what you led with? We can get there eventually, but what would you say below, beyond, beneath your life on paper?
It's funny because it's a little bit of a portal right now for me. Like what my role is. And over my lifetime, I've always been a writer, and I think I will continue to be a writer. So author feels comfortable for me because I'm most comfortable writing books. I'm not so comfortable. I've been in the role of writer in the commercial sense, and I much prefer working with writers in that sense. Um, I've been a creative director for many, 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 many years, and a brand strategist, that kind of thing. But more and more, what I'm finding myself drawn to is working on boards, so boards of directors. So I'm on a couple of boards, and I like the guidance aspect. And like I'm a pretty sleeves rolled up board member, but I also like that like executing things isn't necessarily my job. I was on the I work 20 hours a day team for a really long time. So it's nice to sort of be transitioning to just um, thoughtful and um, using my experience to help steer. And and the other thing that's really interesting to me about that, I mentioned that I'm like using my book. So the book that you held up is the only nonfiction piece that I've written. Buried Treasure is its memoir, and you, otherwise I've written fiction. And so I mentioned that I'm using AI with it. I put the manuscript into AI, and I can just sort of I can use my own book as a tool, because the book has tons of neuroscience and its actions, and um, so I'm really, really dedicated to um, understanding using AI and the opportunities that it holds, and then helping shape ethics for companies to ensure that it's used well. And I'm working on a project right now that it's not public yet, but it's building AI that is for the public good, and that, you know, culture needs the best minds and the best imaginations and the most ethical people working on AI, because it is happening. We are using it. It's like cars. Like if you stand on the side and say, no, no, I want to stay with horses, a Ford's going to knock you over, it is what's happening. So I think being dedicated to it being deployed well and in service of humanity and in service of our earth is good, important work. And in that book, uh, Buried Treasure, one of the things that I talk about is I found a definition of hope that really spoke to me. I'd been like forever in these like sort of tussles about optimism and hope. And I feel like they're such different things, and they get used interchangeably. And hope is, to me, um, when there's something that you identify and understand to be important enough to you to do the work. So, something big, and optimism is something that you kind of, like, it's a wish in a way, and if it doesn't come true, like, oh, well, you were optimistic about it. But I was in another, seems like I'm always in this debate, but I was in another debate about hope and optimism, and I got sort of sidelined on, well, I don't want to debate semantics. And so I actually finished doing the neuroscience research on it. And so then, what your brain does in a state of optimism, it's really fantastic. It brings on like all of your imagination and creativity, and you get lots of dopamine, but it never switches over to your prefrontal cortex or into planning and your executive functions. So you can be optimistic about all kinds of things and get super creative about it, but it's that switch into actually doing something about it that turns it into hope, and then activates your sense of personal agency. And so the main thing on that research is that the people doing research on optimism and hope, they feel that there's a sort of danger to optimism because when that optimism fades, it's a kind of a slippery slope into hopelessness. And hopelessness is deep sense of no personal agency, and it's um the blah blah. There's I could go on and on and on, but so um I forget where I even started. Sorry. But anyway, I am a big believer in hope. So, oh, I know what it was. You can keep it or edit this out. But I do remember my circle. I was talking about AI, and I feel like working with AI is there are many things to be scared of. There's a lot of doom around it, but it is a tool that exists that we are using that will continue to evolve. And I am hopeful in the sense that I feel like I have personal agency to channel ways that it's used, and particularly at the board level to help write ethics around it and guidelines around it so that it's keeping people at the center and what is best for all of us in mind. So I feel like it's a good time for me to be um, bringing my perspective on hope to that big, really big challenge. It's it's going to change our lives for sure. It's changed mine in many, many, many positive ways, and I know that it's very scary for some, and that like one of the things that I'm working on, I watch what's happening in AI and AGI and all of that. The way that when during COVID, one of my projects, I needed to report weekly to my client. So we were rolling out a new product in the United States, a car in North America, and so I had to report weekly on what was happening in the markets that we were supposed to be going into. So it was really mind-numbing, heartbreaking work to be deep into the details on so much of that. So I'm a little bit that way on AI because of the this one project that I'm working on, but I do remain actively hopeful about it.
Is hope the one that you define as the good worth working for?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy that you are in this position, and it makes sense to me because of like I want people exactly as thoughtful as you in this realm, and as caring and careful. But I was super reluctant to use AI at all. But you were you were the one who got me into it. You introduced me to my AI boyfriend Claude, who I still use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're still dating.
We're still dating. I call him my boyfriend. But I didn't know that you were continuing on in that work, but it makes such good sense. And I love that that's you because I was kind of the one who was going to get run over by the Ford, on the side of the road because I was like so avoidant, but I love the symmetry there. It's so good. So important. I want to know if you will tell us how old you are and how old do you feel?
I am 65. I turned 65 in August. How old do I feel? I sit like I like when people ask me, I sometimes I have to think about it. I my fallback answer, like, like, oh, I'm 36, or sometimes I think, oh, I think I'm in my 40s. So I don't really have a fixed age in my mind. Um, I um, I do actively like try to undo things that make me feel old. I mean, I'm not I don't have any problem that I'm 65. I'm psyched, like, wow. My mom always said that growing older beats the hell out of the alternative. And, so so I'm psyched that I get to grow old and you know, but for instance, there there are there are haircuts that just like if my hair looks a certain way, it's like I feel like I look like an old lady. It's like that's an old lady vibe. And I remember noticing that literally when I was in my 40s. And it's like, oh my God, I look like a soccer mom. This has to go. So like, or like sliding into things that feel comfortable. I don't mean physically comfortable, but like that that scream a certain age, and they don't scream the age that I feel. So I do try to pay attention to, like, if I catch those on myself, like it's usually like walking by a window somewhere and it's like, wait, who is that? That is not okay. I try to have as much fun with being this age as I can. Like I'm smarter. It feels really good to have buried treasure out of my body. It's just a little piece of the book is memoir about trauma and moving through trauma. And it's like it took me to this age to be able to do that. So it's super lovely to just be able to like, if I see the book outside of me, it's like, oh, that's outside of me. It's not inside of me anymore. And yeah, there's lots of really lovely things that you get to set down as you age, that you can say, oh yeah, that doesn't matter. I don't need to do that. I don't need to worry about that. Um, and then I had a coach for years. We just had our closing session because he's retiring. And we'd always done our sessions on telephone. So I'd never seen him. We met when I was working in Amsterdam. So we started working together in 1999 or in 2000, and we had our final conversation in 2025. We worked together for 25 years over the phone. And he booked our closing conversation as a Zoom. And so I saw him, not just as a static picture, but like we talked. And I'm I guess sort of notorious for a long pause when I'm in conversation, like I'm thinking through what I want to say, whatever. And I did that and he laughed so hard, and he's like, I know that pause so well, but I've never seen it. And so it was just this great, it gave him such, it was fun for me because it was such a belly laugh. So, things, I guess what I'm trying to say about age is that part of the joy of aging is being able to set things down. Oh, I know what I was going to say. So my coach, I was closing our Amsterdam office, and he guided me to be extremely meticulous, like take notes. What do you spend your time on? Like, what's your time? Because you're going to get back this big chunk of time. And if you aren't rigorous in using that time in a way that you want to, the universe will fill it. The universe abhors a vacuum. And if you have 28 extra hours a week because you're not working so many hours, universe will fill it. So if you set something down, how do you want to use that time, or how do you want to use that space, or to be joyful and playful about, like like I earned setting this shit down. So what do I want to do with it? Like I get to play instead of do that. Or, I get to dance instead of lug that. So I think that's a really joyful way of looking at that part of aging too.
Mm-hmm.
Get to play.
There's so much I want to follow up on. So let's see, what am I going to pull the thread on? I mean, I think it's fascinating to be someone who is 25 years your junior, that like, because I have this split time. I had part of my life, certainly my childhood, my adolescence, and my young adulthood, and even the beginning of my career when I was practicing law, where the world was not as it is today in terms of its virtual impact. And so I can remember, not having a smartphone. I can remember having a BlackBerry when I first started working. And so I do remember like that I would have been talking to people at my law firm, clients, on the phone and not in a video conference. But I just think I think it's probably, that was a little bit of a moment for someone to be like, you listening, who's maybe closer to my age, to think you worked with someone for 25 years over the telephone. But there's something there for us, like this reminder of like, oh, right, so much of humanity has not been like navigating the visual and virtual complexity that we are today. So there's that. I just think hearing that is really helpful for my perspective. Another thing that you said about that exercise, and I remember reading about it in the book, where your coach said, you better know what you're going to put there because, and as you said, the universe abhors a vacuum. I think many women, or maybe just me in midlife, I feel like we're filling our time so much that I'm really curious about more vacuum space. Like,
But if you so there's a like every calendar person will say this is like block the time that is for like you block an hour and put have fun. Where if you don't block that hour, something's going to go in there. Like, oh, somebody called, can you do this? Like, oh, yes, I am available to pick up the kids or whatever. But if there's something blocked in your calendar, you're less likely to just like, oh yeah, okay. Or like, but when I was looking at it, one of the biggest thing that I put out of those hours was sleep, because I was literally sleep deprived. So I don't mean like fill it with activity necessarily, but you know, fill it with something that isn't the outside world, you know, s- pushing its way into to your life, your space.
totally. You were kind of touching on this, but one of my questions is, what is one narrative or story or script that you were given about a woman your age now? And are you living that? How does that feel for you actually being at your age?
I don't think there is. I can't think of, I mean, I remember when I was a kid watching my aunts
Mm-hmm.
and my grandmother. But I get, well, actually, yes, of course. So my age, you're old and you're irrelevant and you're invisible and all of these things. And I I I definitely have danced with all of those things. But I think that I don't know. I think that that's your own frame of mind, like kind of why I watch for, like that haircut makes me look old. Not that I don't have a problem with, I have wrinkles, I've got it all. But like it's like a state of mind old, then that no, like I don't want to be old, invisible, irrelevant, all of those kinds of things. So I do think that that's a constant narrative. And one of the narratives that I've pushed up against quite a bit, is that so like when I was in my 20s, I also modeled, and I was a large size model at the time. So it's super new, though. It was pretty. You know, I can't think of a word, but anyway, it was during the period of heroin chic. So like models were like really sickly thin, and the whole idea of that saying you can never be too rich or too thin was, everywhere. And so now being an elder curvy model, um, there's lots of appetite for older models, but they're all stick thin. Like it's sort of back to the 80s. And I feel sad. I take criticism for this, but I feel sad that so many have had so much plastic surgery. Like I think if you want to have plastic surgery, do it. If you do whatever you want to do. But I think that it's good for us to have role models who are as they are. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe have a mix, like know what a 65-year-old looks like so that your aspirations are real and you can be happy with like I I, I kind of learned, I don't know that I ever didn't, but I like my wrinkles. I think like the like smile lines are kind of cool and like um I'm really happy that I have smile lines instead of frown lines. Like that's okay. There's something like if you're looking at real people, like smile more because you're gonna have better wrinkles. You know what I mean? Like
Good. That's good. Oh my gosh.
right? You
There's
know,
so much. Yes. Well, this is why I'm doing this podcast for many reasons, some of which I don't even understand yet. Like quite like I haven't like figured them all out. But I listen, there's a lot of celebrities, experts, influencers telling us things about what they know, about their research, about what or what they think it is like for us. But I'm really interested in, and it's not that you're not accomplished and renowned and like so steeped in what you've done, but like I'm really talking, and everyone I'm talking to on the podcast, at least this first season, they're people that I know. And I think there's something that I'm really drawn to, like asking closer in instead of just like picking up my phone to like see what it might look like out there. Like I want to sit with people. I want to sit with women, real women, and hear what it's like for you. And that's, I don't know, maybe it's a similar feeling to see what it's really like.
yeah. And like um I read a book. I don't remember what book it was in. It's just this little tidbit, but the dad in the book did some kind of contest where like it was building a flying contraption or something. And he didn't let his kids go. And you're like, wow, that seems kind of mean. And he went and did this really fun thing and he would come home and tell them about it. And then he at a certain point in the story, he lets them work on it. And he tells them while they're working on it that the reason that he didn't before is because there need to be some things that you look forward to as you age. And that our life where everything is like all the good things happened when you were young. And it stuck with me. I'm sure I'm just bastardizing the line, but I just love the idea that there's things to look forward to. It's not all bad. It's just not. It's lovely. And I think that we've maybe lost that in our storytelling and certainly in our generational storytelling. And you know, like, I love that you're doing this across so much age because, like, one of my dearest friends is in her early 40s, and she is absolutely positively a teacher for me. I mean, I learn from her every time we meet. You know, we have epically long, we're going to meet for coffee, and everybody around us now is like, okay, there goes that day. But it's, it's, yeah. So I think that this, like where wisdom lies is throughout ages, and that like we're really lucky if we get to be in relationship with people that share their wisdom with us, because it's 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 gained from a life, not just from a period of years.
Yes, I do. I think it's part of this project too. And there's so many places I want to go, but I'm wondering if you could tell us, because I also started this podcast because I'm just frankly obsessed with turning 40. And it's just I am so curious about it. I do feel like so much got shaken up. And I was talking to someone the other day and I was like, when I turned 30, it felt less. And I was just like, oh, I'm out of my 20s. Like it was less, I don't know, just had less potency to me. But do you remember how did you feel about turning 40? Like, was there a preconceived idea you had, or what was it actually like?
It's funny, I remember turning 30, and a close friend of mine's birthday is like one day from mine, so we threw a joint party, and our invite said "fuck 30," even though we were turning 30, and it was a great party. But it wasn't like you said, it didn't seem that it's like, oh, I'm not in my 20s anymore, and that seems kind of weird. But it didn't seem that old. 40 felt more grounded somehow, and not always in a good way, but not always in a bad way either. Like, oh, okay. And then shortly into my 40s, we took a very big job. So, as I've said, my husband and I are creative collaborators, always have been. We took a very big job in New York City at a big global agency. And it was like when we got there, we were kind of the oldest creatives, like, oh, I'm like 5 or 7 years older than everybody here. But we were also like, we were supposed to be in charge. And and I had this one conversation where I was kind of getting feisty, and it was like the agency needs to do this and the agency needs to do this and da, da, da. And the woman who was the global president, she was nodding along and she was like, okay, well, you're the agency, do that. And I was like, oh shit, like, okay, it's up to me. I'm not just commenting, I'm responsible. So those were kind of the two wake up calls, I think, for me of um, a level of maturity and responsibility in my 40s of like, oh, I'm not playing house anymore. And oh, I'm I'm the one. It's like I'm in charge. I need to step up and own what that accountability and responsibility means. And then I want to say just one thing for you. So, as you go into your 40s, and like that sounds heavy, but so we had a bookkeeper in Portland who was like just this Buddhist goddess. I love her. And so she was always dropping wisdom bombs. And one of the things that she said to me is that your 50s are when you live the life you've built. So when I remember turning 50, and my so my husband and I turned 50 the same year, but we celebrated at my birthday at a huge party, and it was so much fun. And it's like, okay, this we're going to live the life we've built. Our 50s were really fun in that way, so I think, they every era has its thing, but um I do understand entirely what you mean about there being a gravitas to 40. It's not bad, I think, is what I'm getting from you. It's not bad, it's exciting, and it's powerful. It's like belly energy or something, right? Like grounded and forceful, and it's great.
I feel like I don't know, this like a woman in her 40s is like perhaps one of the most potent, powerful, sexy, terrifying creatures in the whole universe. And I also think that that's like the moment where society kind of like deems us becoming irrelevant or disappearing us in some way. And so I know that I know that there's so much potency and like potential for us to really step into in this decade or not, or kind of succumb
Or
to it.
not. Yeah. Right,
Yeah.
it's a choice. And like one of the things that I explore in Buried Treasure a lot is guardians at the gate, or um threshold monsters. So you're talking about a portal, which is a threshold, and um like you're describing this jewel, this juicy, powerful, entity. And so by nature, there's going to be a lot of guardians at that gate, like a lot of um, uh, monsters that are like, are you sure you want that? Are you strong enough to do that? And society, like, no, you don't get to go there, that kind of thing. And one of my favorite things about let's call it a portal guardian, is that like in classical mythology, they're they often, they're fierce and they're monstrous and everything. They're putting up a hand, stop, don't enter. But if you look, the lower hand is saying, come on, come forward, like stay on your journey. Like, and so to me, doing all of that research, it's like when you come upon those portal monsters, or those being a threshold guardians, whatever you want to call them, like it's really smart to think of it as, ooh, I think I'm getting close to a treasure, instead of like, oh, I have to stop. It's like, oh, I'm getting close to the good stuff. And it might be hard, it might be scary, whatever, but I am close to juicy treasure.
Mm. Yes, I love that so much. I mean, was that the Joseph Campbell research? Like yeah. I I have not read Joseph Campbell. Of course, I know the gist of it, but when I was reading that section of the book, I was like, I think I need to add this to my list of books to bring to India. Um, so thank you for that. I'm going to move us into the 40 portal question wisdom piece. And you were at my 40th birthday party. And what I love is that like I mean, like we have like a handful of, and we've had a handful of really strong interactions but not many, and we hadn't known each other for very long. And I was like, do you want to come to my party? And you're like, I'll be there. And I just was such a, oh my gosh. I think part of this project too is, the way that women get depicted sometimes is that we're just so contentious with each other. And I have found so much support in the women that I actually truly know in my life. And like that just felt like that peaceful generosity of being like, of course I'll be there. And it's not like, we can say yes to everything because for a million reasons, but I don't know, there was just a resoundingness to that really felt like antithesis or the antidote to like any kind of conversation of like women not supporting each other. It was very,
Right, or cattiness, and all of the conversations that evening were so lovely and um, intimate and revealing. People just were not there to have idle chit chat. It felt like at each conversation I fell into or overheard was, just people really genuinely sharing themselves. It was great.
Mm. And then that was what people wrote, including you that night. I was like, I think I have to keep going with this. I don't know what it's going to become, but here we are. So I want to read to you a question that someone submitted who this person was very close to turning 40 when they wrote their question. So I'm going to read it to you, and whatever it brings up for you is what you can talk about. The question that I've been living is, what does reinvention look like for me in my 40s? It's so hard to not compare myself to other people and see how far they've come. I bat off the jealousy that's inside when I see people in their 20s come out swinging. I placed so many roadblocks in my way, and now at the end of my 30s, I've finally gotten most of them off the road. So this decade feels like a clearing. Where will the road take me?
That is so lovely. Hmm. Well, I understand the jealousy. I understand the comparison that, it's natural. Um, it's not that productive. It's just, it doesn't get you very far. So just selfishly set it down. Um, but I think the amazing thing to focus on there is what she's cleared. That in from my perspective, only in her 30s, that she's cleared this open space for herself. And I feel like, for me, it took me until my 60s. And so good on you. You've got 30 years on me. So go. But also the um that idea of, like, you've cleared this space, you've set things down, and like to so open-heartedly, genuinely, imaginatively turn yourself to what might it be and what juices you and like what excites you, what sparks your curiosity for where that road might go, and give yourself the gift of following your curiosity. And because if you're lit up and you are genuinely engaged with something, 'cause curiosity always sparks joy. It just does. It's one of the surefire ways to spark joy and hope. Just follow your curiosity, and it's going to turn out well. So if if you can, or this person or anybody that's feeling that way, they have this wide open space in front of them, is to be brave enough to imagine the most wonderful, fulfilling, exciting, beautiful, you know, delightfully dangerous things and behaviors and activities and adventures. Like, that's what's going to happen. The more you put your imagination and your curiosity on those kinds of things, that's what's going to reveal itself, because that's what you're thinking about. Whereas if you're sort of, I mean, not to just go back to the universe abhors a vacuum, but if you have a big empty space and you're not putting any energy into what you want to do with it, the universe is going to dump some stuff for you. There's going to be like, oh, I guess I could take this job. Here it is. Or like, well, I guess I could go out with that person. It's like, it just like things get put in front of you, and the more that you allow yourself to imagine the juiciest, best, most wonderful, the more likely your curiosity is going to lead you in the direction of those things. And plus, just the action of imagining it is so much fun. And so that's that optimism part. You bring in all of the imagination and you get dopamine rush and all of that. And then if you bring in action on it and you turn it actually into hope, and you make yourself you bring in your agency and you take action on it, then you're like you're just a fireball, like you're sparked up, you're active, you're making things turn into the things that you imagined. It's like any creative process, but it's your life. So I think an open space is magnificent, and play.
I feel like I could feel my posture alight and my energy rise. Like I was like, I gotta go because I want to go do that work. And so I feel like our listener is probably feeling the same way. So I want to send her off with that juice, that really alighted and just powerful invitation you gave. So thank you. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me. What a joy.
Oh,
Just
biggest
an
joy.
absolute joy.
Total joy. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Are you sitting up a little taller too? I mean, I felt that. I felt that invitation that Alicia was issuing at the end of that conversation, and I felt myself start to rise to the occasion. And I'm excited to keep doing the work. And it's funny because I interviewed her back in January or early February, and now I'm recording this outro at the beginning of May. The episode will come out on Mother's Day. And oh my gosh, so much of the stuff we talked about in that episode then, I did not even realize that it was about to come for me in real life. And I think this is part of the process of transmutation that is the 40 portal, that is the fucking 40 portal, is that we can talk about these things, we can think about these things, we can meditate on these things, we can take these things into therapy, and then we will encounter, as Alicia said, those portal guardians, those threshold monsters, with the one hand saying beware, and the other hand saying, come on in, because yes, there's some crazy work for you to do here, but the only way through is through. And that requires us to make different choices, to act differently in our lives. And so it's both like a mindset shift and then an embodied difference in your life. And so there was so much in there, and it was really cool to listen back to that conversation and see what has been unfolding for me in my last few months of my own 40 portal. And I can tell you, those portal guardians, the threshold monsters, yes, true. Yep, that's happening. Okay, so before you go, please share this episode with a friend who also needs to hear it. Please subscribe, follow over on Substack, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a review if something resonated, because your words help other people find the podcast. And please submit your 40 portal questions and wisdom for the chance to have your words anonymously shared and anchoring an upcoming episode. Okay, and here is my big announcement. So we are over on Substack, because of course we are. And we have a really teeny tiny core group of women over there so far. And I want to grow that space because I think it's a really cool proverbial room for us to hang out in. Kind of sit shoulder to shoulder on a panel, but in Substack from the comfort of our own homes and our soft pants. And there is a paid for tier over on the Substack. I think it's $8 a month. And I haven't really put anything there yet. Some of you have joined as a paid subscriber, and that means so much because this is like a passion project of my work right now. And I pay my fabulous editor, and there's stuff that goes into this podcast. So you joining me at the paid subscription level helps to keep this podcast going. It helps give me the resources I need to keep showing up here to do and share this work with you. But this past week, I just realized what I wanted to actually offer in the paid subscription tier over on Substack, over on the 40 Portal Substack. And I'm so excited for it. Dun, dun, dun. Here it is. I am starting the most low-key book club ever under the paid tiered subscription on Substack. So the 40 Portal Book Club, if you've been listening, even if you just listened to this episode, you know that books are some of my most powerful teachers. I have learned so much about my own process of becoming, how I'm moving through the world, how I'm growing. Even in my 20s and especially my 30s and definitely now in my 40s, I have this canon of books of these teachers that have really showed me so much through their words. And so I'm always mentioning books on the podcast. Some of my guests are mentioning them too. And the 40 Portal Book Club is basically, you don't even have to read the book. There are no meetings. You could read the book. I've read the book, but every Friday then I will, for my paid subscribers only, host like a little asynchronous book club meeting where I just give you the cliff notes of powerful books that I've read. I will create little prompts for self-inquiry, little journaling prompts for you too, so that you can engage with the work, you can engage with the concepts, even if you're not sitting down to read the book. You never have to show up for a meeting, but if this takes off, if people want to do this, maybe we will hang in a Zoom room or something at some point. And this is why I say it's the most low-key book club ever. There's not even like every month there's a new book. It's just going to be every couple weeks I'll talk about something different, or every week I'll talk about something different. First up are two of my favorites. I have to do both at once because there's so much goodness in there. Two of my absolute favorites, books by Pema Chodron, who is an incredible teacher of mine from afar and has been since I first read one of these books in 2011, When Things Fall Apart. That is one of the books. Every time I go back to one of these like treasured favorites, I will write the date of my reading and rereading of the books. And so I know the first time I read When Things Fall Apart was 2011. And I now look back at all the dates that I've picked it back up again. And I'm like, oh, that's when that fell apart. That's when that fell apart. That's when that caught on fire. That's when that tumbled into like dust, like all of these things. And so When Things Fall Apart is on the list. And also Pema's book, Living Beautifully with Uncertainty and Change. I mean, this woman and her titles, so good. So if either of those concepts appeal to you right now, When Things Fall Apart or Living Beautifully with Uncertainty and Change, consider joining me in the lowest key book club ever. The 40 Portal Book Club over on Substack, paid subscription, $8 a month. It's like the cost of a fancy latte and helps me keep the podcast going. So can't wait to share some of my favorite books with you over there. I will link to it so you can join us. Okay, that's all I got. I'm so grateful that you're here. I love being here. I actually had breakfast this morning with Kate Schmeeding, episode 1, and she was like, how does it feel? Do you like what's going on with the podcast? And I am so vivified by this work. It is moving me through so much. I hear from you that it's moving you through things too. I feel like we're really strong on our own and we're really strong together. And so thank you for being here. Thank you for simply being here. It means so much. I hope it means something to you too. If not, go do something else. That's okay. That's what we could do in our 40s. Okay, I'll see you back here next time, I hope.